I've purchased dozens and dozens of investment properties across the country. I'm a degree qualified property investment advisor. I've spent 20 years in finance, financial planning, and wealth management. And people are always asking me, where should I buy? So in this session, I'm going to be going through Tamworth in New South Wales and identifying what the property market is doing there. Now, before we get into it, this is not financial advice. Please consider purchasing property as part of your overall financial plan. If you're looking for a financial planner, accountant, mortgage broker, or property lawyer, I'm more than happy to recommend you to somebody. But that being said, this is just research, factual, and satirical information only. It does not constitute financial advice. I don't even know if property is right for you. And many times I've actually convinced people not to buy property because it's not suited to their particular situation. If property is suited for you, feel free to watch on. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Going through Tamworth's performance lately, you can see there that over a 3-month period, we've seen between 3 and 6% in growth over some periods. You can see over a 3-month period, we've seen between 3 and 6% growth in the majority of areas. Over a 12-month period, we're seeing 12% plus growth in some areas and 6 to 12 in other areas throughout Tamworth. In terms of rental performance, the median rent there is between $500 and $600 in most areas, and the rental growth has actually been between 5 and 10%, fairly uniform across Tamworth. Asking property prices have risen over the last 5 or so years. You can see there that the median house price has risen from $400,000 to $800,000 over a 5-year period. And for 3-bedders, you can see there that we're looking at around about $300 to $600. So roughly 100% growth over a 5-year period. In the shorter term, you can see we've had a bit of a rise over the last year or so for property in Tamworth in the 2340 postcode, where property prices have risen from, for a 3-bedder, $500 to $600 and $700 to $800. So roughly 25% growth there in terms of all houses. You can see that this price rise has been as a result of a reduction in the overall supply of property. You can see 2 sharp declines in property listings. The first one is in around 2020, which coincided with COVID lockdowns. As we came out of lockdowns, the number of listings rose. And over the last year, you can see that listings have started to decline, which has more than likely contributed to property values in the area. In terms of overall vacancy rates, similar story. Tamworth had vacancy rates above 3, close to 4% in some cases at the beginning of lockdown. When COVID lockdowns occurred, they dropped dramatically all the way down to 1%. Towards the end of COVID lockdowns, they remained low between 2022 and 2023. The vacancy rates have risen to between 1.5%. However, over the last year, they've fallen again, and we're seeing vacancy rates of around 1%, which again would have contributed to rental growth and property price growth as well. And similar story you can see in the overall number of rental listings, a sharp decline in 2020 throughout COVID lockdowns, and then again coming down again over the last year. You can see peaks of around 200 rental listings coming down to just over 100, 120 rental listings there at the moment. Gross rental yields have fallen. However, we can see rental yields of 6% in 2020, and then they've declined for 3-bedroom homes. You can see you can get a rental yield of around about 4.2% there. For all homes, similar story. From 2020, they were around 5%, and then they've dropped to just below 4% now. Now, the area hasn't seen great population growth over the previous 5-year period. You can see there that population growth in Tamworth in comparison to regional New South Wales has been relatively low, roughly half of population growth in Tamworth compared to the regional New South Wales population growth. However, subsequent years after lockdown, you can see there that population growth has exceeded in 2 out of 3 years after lockdowns. And in terms of future population growth, the expected population forecast is to 80,000, so 20% over the next 16 years, more than 1% per year, which is roughly the Australian forecasted average. So this is a typical case study here in Tamworth. This property is a 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car house on 470 squares. It's listed at $625, so just below the median price point of $650. Stamp duty and upfront costs are $26,000. This property is rent appraised at 4.7%. So it actually has tenants in place at 570. Estimated council rates for the area are roughly 2,200. Estimated water rates are $800 per annum. Landlord home and contents insurance premium is roughly 2,500, depending on your policy, level of cover, excess price. We're going to give a rough estimate of 2,500. That being said, consider each insurance policy if it's appropriate for you. Property management costs of 8.8% equates to roughly $50 a week. And then interest only payments based on 80% of the LVR is $2,500 per month at a 6% interest rate. So all in all, your deposit plus upfront costs, you're looking at $169,000. And then your ongoing costs, you're looking at just under $8,800 per annum, or $168 loss per week. So look, that being said, if you're looking at investing in property in Tamworth, that is all the factual information. I will leave it up to you whether investing in property in Tamworth is appropriate for your financial situation. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. As always, I'm only able to make these videos because you like, you subscribe, and you comment and ask questions about the properties and the research that I do. So please do not hesitate to ask any questions. If you want to understand if property is appropriate for you, I'm more than happy to have a chat about your overall investment property strategy. Thanks again, and have a great day.